Well, welcome to the Glen Ferris Inn with Dining with Dan and Becky. Tonight I have as my guest Mike Hall and his wife Becky, and General Gilliam over there on the end. He's out here for another free meal, I can see. But he's Mike is the new Chief of Staff for the Governor of West Virginia. And Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live and all that.
Okay, well actually I live in Putnam County. I don't live in Kanawha, and I served in the legislature for 23 years, and this summer when Governor Justice called me up and said, can I talk to you? I was actually in Boston about something. So I went down and talked to him for a little while, and he asked me to be his Chief of Staff, and I thought about it for a while. It was a big change for me. But we decided to go ahead and do it, and so I guess you asked me where do I live. I live in Putnam with my wife Becky, and currently I am serving as the Governor's Chief of Staff. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your education, where you went to school, and all that kind of stuff.
Actually, both of us went to Marshall University. That's where we met.
Well, we won't hold that against you. You know, we're West Virginia University guys over here, except for Gillian.
I got season tickets to Marshall. We're good.
Yeah. Well, you know, Marshall won a very impressive football game Saturday.
That's right. That's
They
right.
beat University of Cincinnati. Of course, I was there we were there in the 60s. Late 60s, when Marshall had lost 28 straight games, and Don Nealon brought his Bowling Green team in, and they were a 28-point favorite for Marshall. If Marshall had lost that game, it would have been the longest losing streak in the history of college football. But as it turned out, the most incredible upset that I ever witnessed, Marshall beat them 28-0.
Well, that's great.
So we stopped the streak. But yeah, we met down there at Marshall, and then actually I went off to seminary in New England and came back and was a Methodist minister in southern Mason County. We were talking about Mason County earlier for a few years. And then just things happened, and I ended up in another denomination, and then decided to run for legislature.
Okay.
I actually lost my first election, and second and third. I'm like Abe Lincoln. Then I stayed out of it, but then in 1994 I actually ran and won, and I didn't lose till I left.
That's great.
Yeah,
I watch you all the time on the legislative Channel 9.
Legislature Today.
Very good, and I watch, and I liked your views several times of various things,
really?
Especially on the budgets and things. And since I'm a construction type guy, you do a lot of construction for the state, and we're always concerned about having a proper budget and to help maintain all the buildings and roads and all that kind of stuff in the state. So, but Vicki, tell us a little more about you.
Well, I grew up in Point Pleasant.
Point Pleasant.
Went to Marshall, as Mike said, graduated from there. Have a degree in elementary education and elementary administration. Served most of my career as an elementary school principal in Mason County. We have two sons, Mike, who lives in Hurricane and is a civil engineer, and Eric, who lives in Lewisburg and has his own insurance agency, Hollison Insurance.
That's great. Great. Well, we will have to go back in the kitchen and see what Becky's been cooking up for us, and I'm sure she's made us a good meal, and it may not be real heart healthy, but I'm sure it's something that's really tasty. And, so let's go back in the kitchen and see what Becky's cooked up for us.
All right.
Welcome back to Dining with Dan and Becky at the Glen Ferris Inn. And as always, welcome to our lovely kitchen. Tonight, Dan's dinner's menu is going to consist of a tossed salad, bourbon steak. Then we are going to do a layered potato casserole, garden vegetables that are sauteed, and then we're going to be doing our dessert. It's the first time I've ever done this on the program, and it is a Dutch apple pie, which is different than a regular apple pie. Okay, let's get started. The thing that's going to take the most time is the pie, because not only do you have to make the crust, you have to make the filling, you have to make the crumb topping, then you have to bake it off. So let's get started. We have got 2 cups of flour, a pinch of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 3/4 cup of water, and 3/4 cup of a solid vegetable shortening. So let's get started on this. What you want to do first is put your flour in your mixing bowl and then add your shortening. No, you don't. I'm sorry. You're going to add your sugar, you're going to add your salt, you're going to mix it up. And then we will be adding our solid shortening. Okay, now the next thing you want to do, guys, is to cut the shortening up into the flour until it resembles small peas. Now you can do this with 2 knives, a fork, you can do it with a pastry blender, or you can just use your hands. I prefer doing my hands with all of my breads because I like to feel the texture, the consistency, and that works best for me. Everyone has their own way of doing it. All you do is get a handful of shortening and flour and rub it together and keep doing it, mixing it up until all of the flour is worked in. And this is almost ready. All right, now we are going to add our 3/4 cup of liquid. I always make a little bit of a well first. And I start out with mixing it with a mixing spoon. And then, you know, pie dough, you just can't leave it alone or stir it. It gets absolutely too stiff. So, those are dinner rolls for tonight's dinner service. Aren't those just super looking? Now, this is not a traditional pie dough. My mama, Natalie Phillips, or Granny as we call her, came up with this one. And it is very soft, super soft, almost like a biscuit dough. And it's easier to work with. It makes a delicious, crispy, almost cracker, sugar cookie type crust. So, thank you, Jeff. All right, we're going to roll this out. Now, since we're going to be using a pie and it's round, we're going to start out with our dough being a ball. If you're going to be using it in a baking dish that's rectangular, you're going to start out with your dough being a rectangle. And the theory behind this is if you take the same number of rolls in each direction, you will keep a perfect ball. But we all know that I'm not capable of doing that. But that's all right. We'll suffer through it. So here we go. All right, that was 4 that way. And then we will do 4 this way. That's pretty circular. Now this has got to be at least 3 to 4 inches larger than what your pie pan is, because it has to come up the sides and then over the edges. All right, let's see where we are in this. Let's do it a few more times. Okay, and there we are. All right, now to put it in your pie pan, You're going to fold it over very carefully. And then you're going to fold it the other way very carefully. Adding flour as you need it to your working area to keep your dough from sticking and from tearing. Okay. I'm going to fold it one more time. All right. Put your tip in the center of your pie pan and just start unfolding. Boy, is this delicate. Making your pie shells aren't so hard. Fixing the crust for a cobbler as large as what we do at the inn is hard. Now I tore that little piece. All right, now the next thing you're going to do is crimp your pie shell. So you're going to take a fork, dip it in your flour, and your first stage is to prick the bottom all the way around. Then you're going to come back and make tine impressions in the side. And you're going to have to keep flouring your fork when the dough sticks. So let's get that done. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is to flute the edges of your pan. Now I generally keep kitchen shears handy, and I cut the dough all the way around to where it's got about a ½ an inch overhang, but I'm going to just do it with my fork. My mama could make the most beautiful fluted pies, and so can Danny's mother, Grandma Hill. I don't have the knack, but I can flute them. Okay. So there we go with that step. All right, now what you want to do is pick up your overhang and mash it to, thank you, Jeff, the other side of your dough. Now look at this very carefully. You're going to put 2 fingers down and press it down. And in the center, you're going to take the side of your finger and pull the section of the dough towards the inside. Then you're going to put your finger, a little gap, and your thumb. Finger, thumb, little gap, and you're going to flute it completely around your pie shell. Now I know this isn't the neatest in the world, but it works for me. Okay, let's get some more of this. While I'm doing this, guys, why don't you all just relax a little bit and give me a few minutes, and I'll be back, because I know no one wants to spend forever watching me flute a pie shell. And welcome back. I have finished our pie crust. Doesn't that look nice? A few little edges are jagged, but you know, Dan won't mind. When he went up to the northern part of the state last week, he brought me back 2 pecks of apples. And these were so unusual because it had about 8 different types of apples in it. There were a few Granny Smiths, a few Golden Delicious, a few Red Delicious, Yorks, Jonathans, the old country apples that we had in the yard as a kid that bloomed early, the apples matured early, and they tasted like there was half apple, half pear. Some of those were in it. So what I have here is a conglomeration of several types of apples. Now the nice part of this is that some of them are going to cook up almost into applesauce, and the rest of them are going to be very firm. And these are the apples that we're going to make our Dutch apple pie with. Now for your filling, we have a tablespoon of lemon juice, a teaspoon of vanilla, a third a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of salt. Now before we go any further, I'm going to toss these. Now when you're peeling your apples and you're doing them ahead of time and they're going to be sitting in your refrigerator, make sure you cover them with lemon water or fruit fresh and water. That'll keep them from turning. All right, now you want that sugar more or less evenly distributed. Now for the liquid part of this, I have got 1/2 cup of condensed milk mixed with 2% milk. That worked out perfectly, 1/2 cup. Now, Grandma Hill would use just a can of evaporated milk in this. My mother used melted ice cream, and talk about it giving it a marvelous flavor. It surely did. And let me get this stirred up. Very nice. Jeff, I forgot the cinnamon. Could you get me some cinnamon, please? Can't have apple pie without cinnamon, guys. In fact, thank you, there is an apple pie spice mix that you can buy that has a nutmeg and cloves in it, plus the cinnamon. And to be honest with you, I just prefer pure cinnamon in it. And it wasn't until I started working at the inn and I developed the recipe for the pumpkin pie that we have here, where it uses allspice, nutmeg, cloves, cinnamon, and different amounts of each one, that I came to appreciate the marvelous mixture of all those spices. But for apples, I still prefer pure cinnamon. Now, one thing about this, if you're afraid your apples will not set up right, peel less and add a container of prepared apple filling to it. I do that with my blackberry cobblers all of the time. I buy a can of blackberry pie filling and I mix it with my fresh blackberries because it keeps me from having to cook the blackberries and disturbing their integrity. Now make sure you mix these good, guys. Now you want to make sure your crust is covered completely and that there are no gaps. Now after you've done that, just put another layer of apples. Now remember, I do not have to wear gloves with this because this is all going to be cooked at 350. There are bacteria who will live through that, but not the common foodborne. Most of those are found in hot vents close to volcanoes. And boy, isn't that pretty looking, and it smells so nice already. Now most apple pies have got lattice work or a complete crust. The Dutch apple pie has got crumbs on it. Okay. Now you want to avoid mounding this up for the simple fact that your crumbs will not stay on it. So we're going to do just a few more on the outside. And feel free to place them where you want. I'm going to use one more here. And then I am going to take all of my liquid that's left and I'm going to drizzle it over the top of the pie. but I am not going to add any more apples to this. I hope. Okay, and there we are. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so now the next thing we have to do is our crumb topping, and this will be ready to go in the oven. And then we're going to start that layered potato casserole. Now, I developed this using most of the ingredients for our twice baked potato casserole, only it is solid potato slices. So let's get started. We have half a cup of melted butter. We've got 1 cup of flour. We have got salt, brown sugar, a half a cup, and we're going to mix that up really well. Now this is almost like an apple crisp topping, but with the apple crisp you use oats in it, and quick oats at that, excuse me. All right, now mix your sugar, your salt, and your flour up really well. Now your crumb topping is going to be just like any other topping. You're going to add your butter to it, and you're going to continue mixing it until there are no liquids left and no flour left, that it's all kind of chunky. Okay. Get out that last little bite. All right. Now all you do is mix it together and keep mixing it together. And you know as well as I do, before I'm through, I'm going to have to resort to using my hands. And again, that's okay because this is baking. I do not have to worry about germs. My hands were just washed, and so we're pretty cool. Okay, let's go ahead and get this done, because that casserole has to cook some time. All right. Now this will not make a ball. You don't even have to worry about it. All it is crumbs. On the next one I make, I am going to put cinnamon in this crust and see how that works. Okay, now all we're going to do is sprinkle it on our apples. All over. And then we're going to put it in a 350-degree oven for an hour, 10 minutes. Or 15. You know, when you think that it's ready, we'll take it out. It's a lot of crumbs. And that is why you do not want a nice mound of apples on the top of your pie. This is kind of messy. I have that one apple that does not want to get covered. Okay. Let's get these here. And we are in good shape. Jeff, would you mind putting that in the oven for me? My hands are kind of crumbly. Isn't that pretty? 1 hour, 10 minutes. Okay. All right, let me clean up my mess, guys, and we'll start that potato casserole. All right, welcome back. Let's get started on that potato casserole. Now, I told you I adapted this recipe from my twice baked potato casserole. I have got, instead of mashed potatoes, I have slices of potatoes. And we took our mashed potatoes, mixed it with sour cream, bacon, onions, and then we made a casserole out of it, topped it with cheese and more bacon bits. So we're going to use those areas in this. So the first thing we're going to do is use 1.5 cups of sour cream, 1 stick of butter at room temperature, and that is 1/2 cup. And we're going to mix these together thoroughly. Now, I do not like having this on my hands. I can take dough, but I can't take this. So I'm going to mix it together. Now, I'll be serious. When I was thinking about doing this, I really thought about mixing everything in it and then just putting it in the casserole. And then I thought, no, I'm going to layer it like my 7-layer salad. So we're going to have a layer of potatoes, a layer of our sour cream and butter, then a layer of onions, a layer of bacon, then a layer of cheese, and we will repeat it. So, all right. In my little spice dish, I have got salt, 1 teaspoon, pepper, 1/2 teaspoon, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that up in it because there's, thank you, Jeff, no reason not to. Boy, that smells good. Then, here we go. I'm going to add my potato slices. Jeff, I'm going to spill that all over the place. Thank you. And I'm going to mix this up really good with the potatoes. That way there won't be a distinct layer of sour cream. It's going to be throughout the entire casserole. Now keep mixing this until you think it's fairly uniform. If when you start layering your potatoes, you end up with 1/2 cup of sour cream in the bottom, you are not there. Now toss it and turn it just as if you were turning bread. Okay, now it looks like it's evenly coated. So here we go. Whew, gotta change these guys, excuse me. Okay, my baking pan. All right, excuse me a minute while I get a baking pan, guys. Oh, thank you, Jeff. All right, now we're gonna do 2 distinct layers, each one of them having 3 mini layers in this. So I think I'm just gonna put 1 layer of cheese in it. So we're gonna do our potatoes. Now layer them fairly thin and evenly all the way across the bottom. Then the next thing you are going to do is do your bacon bits and your onions, only I'm going to do the onions first. Now again, this is being cooked at 350, so it doesn't matter if I use my hands on this. The things where it does matter are the things that you are not cooking. Then we're going to do our bacon bits, and this was from fresh cooked bacon at the inn that after it was golden, we drained it. Well, just watch me make a mess. And let it cool, then we cut it into chunks. Now again, we're going to do 2 layers of this. So here we go again. Another layer of potatoes, and this one, of course, you're going to have to use up all the potatoes you have. I think I peeled, oh, it seems to me like it was 10 potatoes for this. And there we are, guys. We've almost finished the 2 layers. All right, then we're gonna do, thank you, Jeff, more onions. More bacon bits. Now what we're going to do is bake this for 45 minutes, and then we are going, it covered with foil, and then we are going to take the foil off, then we're going to put our cheese on it, and then we're going to bake it for 10 or 15 more. Okay, so here we go. Now how about that for a nice dinner? Imagine that with a bunch of cheese on top. Okay, let me get a sheet of foil, and then we will pop this in the oven, and we will be taking it out in 45 minutes. And that is just about the perfect time. Shiny side down, because it reflects the heat back into your food, and it gets it done just a little bit faster. All right, there you are, Jeff.
What's this on?
350 again. It doesn't matter. Let's do it on high. I just like the high fan. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is to make our marinade for the bourbon steak. So if you will give me a minute, I'll go get all the material for it, and we will put our sauce together. We will get the steaks marinated, and then while they are marinating, because they only have to marinate 15 minutes to 2 hours, and I'm afraid that some of Dan's guests may not like the taste, so I'm going to do a low amount of time for the marinade to seep through the meat. That way, if they don't like it, it won't be too bad. So I will be right back, guys, right back. And welcome back. We are ready to start the marinade. Now, what I did with this, I combined 2 different marinades and the main ingredients in each one to come up with this, and I just hope it's really nice. This is a 1/4 cup of Montreal steak seasoning that has been sort of pulverized. And this is a 1/2 cup of bourbon. Now you can use any kind you want as long as it's bourbon. Don't use mash whiskey. If you want bourbon steaks, you need bourbon. And a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of water, 4 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, and 1/2 cup of oil. And that is all our marinade consists of. All right, we're going to mix these together, and then I am going to heat it and let it simmer until that sugar is completely dissolved. Then we are going to put it on our steaks, and I'm going to put them in a plastic bag. Okay, so I have a major weakness in life, and it's pepper. And anyone who knows me knows I over pepper everything, but it's good for you. I kid you not, it's good for you. It builds a strong immune system. It kills precancer cells before they form or as the precancer cells are forming. So when I go out and I buy hamburger and french fries, which God knows I only do it once a year, I get 5 or 6 packages of pepper for each container of ketchup to dip them in. And there we are. Okay, so that is why I chose the Montreal steak seasoning, because it has so many pepper blends in it. And all right, this is just about ready. I see no brown sugar. but we'll wait until it simmers, and then we're going to, all right, it's simmering. All right, so we have our marinade done. Now, if you're going to marinate this, which we are, and you do not know if your guests are going to like it or not, marinate it the least amount of times possible for it to be effective. So here we are. We have got beautiful strip steaks. That one looks almost like a ribeye. And because we're dealing with meat, and raw meat at that, we want to glove up. And not in my little polyethylene gloves, but these heavy-duty things. So, here we go. Now, Jeff said he would help me with this. We are going to put the meat, 2 and 3 steaks at a time, in gallon-sized Ziploc baggies. And then we're going to dump the marinade on it and squish it and turn it. Then we're going to pop it in the refrigerator. Okay, thank you. So, all right, that's 1, 2, and 3. And I think that I am going to add, probably a good cup of this. And we may add more to it. And since this one has 3 in it, I'm going to put the remaining amount in it. Okay, so we're going to seal it. Now, I really like marinating chicken. You know, they're much smaller pieces. It's easier to get the marinade on all sides. Without spilling any. And here we go. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and start preparing our last dish. We're going to do sauteed garden vegetables. Now this morning I cleaned and cut up into bite-sized pieces cauliflower, broccoli, a yellow squash, red onions, and green peppers. And this is going to be our garden vegetables that we're going to saute. Now every one of these has been parboiled because you can do this earlier in the day, let it drain it, let it cool to room temperature, put it in the refrigerator, and then all you have is 5 to 10 minutes worth of cooking. All right, we're going to start out with half a stick of butter, and we may need more. So, I may cut sugar, I may cut carbs, but I do not cut my butter. And if generally, I will mix it half and half with olive oil, but I'm not going to do that this evening. So we're going to let that melt. And I am going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And I was going to add pepper, but I don't think anyone would thank me. That is something you can add at the table, guys, if you're a pepper person. All right, let's get our salt in here. Now remember, you want your spices, your seasonings, whatever they are, mixed with the smallest amount possible that you are going to stir into the whole dish, and it will make it so that it is more consistent with your flavorings throughout your mixture. And There we go. All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right, here we are. Because this has been parboiled, all we have to do is just cook it until everything is hot and that the seasonings has blended into it where it tastes pretty darn good. There you are. So, let's get this done. I wanted something red in here, but I just do not care too awfully much for sauteed tomatoes. And, well, that's just how it goes. I could have put red peppers in it. I wasn't thinking. Because I have one up at the house that Danny raised in his garden. My man is just a farmer at heart. Now, isn't that a pretty dish? Next time I'll think about red peppers. And I may want to add some more butter, so I'm going to keep it over here, but not at the stove, because I don't want it to melt and run all over the place. And I think Donna wanted that piece. There. So why don't I get it centered on the fire? That would be a little bit better. Dan's already planning his garden for next year, guys. He still has turnips that he has to dig, but I don't think they're quite ready. I think that you could take those baby turnips, because some of them are only about that big, and then boil them, and then peel them like you do the baby potatoes, and then fry them in butter, just like you do your baby potatoes when you're fixing them. I think that would be a marvelous way to fix a turnip. I'm going to try it, if not this weekend, soon. All right, we're just going to let this sit a while I check everything that's in the oven. Okay, let's test this and see if our apples are done. Isn't that looking just marvelous? All right. Now, the last apple pie I made, the apples stayed really firm. I think we're in good shape. I think we can take this out. All right. So, we will let this cool a little bit.
I'll get you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. All right, let's get this turned. We don't want it to stick or burn. And we are moving right along. I talked to Dan about digging a cave for me so I could grow mushrooms in it. I don't think he was too impressed with my idea, but I don't know. I think that you could do that if you wanted to. I just don't want them in my basement. And I asked him for a beehive, but I don't think that's coming either. Okay. All right, let's get that meat out and get it turned, Jeff. Oh, you just turned it? Okay, then it's almost ready to go on the grill. Can you light that for me? Is it already lit? welcome back. We're going to check our vegetables to see if they are soft enough. Now remember, I prefer my vegetables a little bit softer than al dente, and so does Dan. And I think they are fine. The broccoli is a good dark green. The cauliflower is that beautiful crystal white. Your squash is beginning to break up, so I think it is time to take it off. So I'm going to ask Jeff. I have shoulder injuries, if you remember, and I'm not good at carrying anything fairly heavy. Okay, so that is ready, and we have our meat that is just about ready. So let's check that potato casserole. Remember, we still have to put cheese on it. Okay. I always do that. Crimp it down tightly. All right, let's see if they're soft. Nope. All right. Oh, I don't want to stir them up and mess up my layers. All right, Jeff, this is going to have to go back in the oven for that final 15 minutes.
Good.
We can leave the foil off.
Oh, okay.
If they brown a little bit, that'll be fine. Okay, our meat. Boy. Now see, the bags I have at the house has a large rim on one. Yeah, they are Ziplocs, and I like them. Okay. So what we are going to do is cook these on the gas grill, and then after they've got some of the flavor from the grill and the grill marks on them, we're going to change them to the flat top. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put our steaks on the grill. Now, technically speaking, if you have a rare one versus a well-done one, which one is going to have to cook the longest? Well, everyone knows that the well-done one is going to require more time to cook than the well. Those are so pretty. We're going to get these on the grill, turn them over, and then I'm going to hand them to Jeff, and he will finish cooking them for me on the flat top. It has a little bit much on it, doesn't it? Okay, now isn't that a beautiful display of meat? Okay, we're going to let them cook a few minutes. I'm going to turn them, then we're going to take them off, and Jeff is going to finish them for me. Okay, do you want to dump the marinade out for me, Jeff? Yeah, but I can't do that.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, I'm just not talented enough to do that.
If I turn them, and then when you flip them over, they'll have the diamond marks.
Okay. Jeff is going to make diamond marks for me on the steaks. I am not talented enough to do that. I can cook a steak like no one's business, but that's about it. Okay. They're not ready to turn? I don't know how you're going to do this, Jeff. Okay. All right, we'll give them a couple minutes, then we'll turn them over. Now that I can do. You all ready?
Yep, ready.
Okay.
Go back.
All right, we've just finished turning our steaks. Look at the beautiful hash marks on them. And the other side, since they're not going to be, this is going to be faced up on the plate, and that's where you want your presentation to be. I once found a catalog that had a branding iron that you could have it made into any initial you wanted and use it to brand your steaks with. Well, I never did get it, and I have regretted it ever since because I can't find the catalog now. Okay. All right, we're going to hand these to Jeff, and he's going to finish cooking them for me. And I think that we are finished. So, we have our vegetables done, the potatoes are all but done, the meat is all but done, and that beautiful pie is done. So, let's go out in the dining room and visit with Dan and his guests, and then I will meet you out there.
Well, Becky, what have you cooked up for us this evening?
Well, we're doing a tossed salad, and we're doing a bourbon steak.
A bourbon
Now,
steak.
it is not a traditional bourbon steak. Thank you, Kelsey. I have my recipe for the bourbon brown sugar marinade.
Okay.
Okay, but it had hot sauce in it,
Oh my. I can't eat
Worcestershire
hot
sauce in it, and lemon juice in it.
Okay.
Well, and it didn't have any pepper in it. I'm a pepper addict. I pepper everything, and I don't mean
Okay.
a little bit. So I decided to leave all of that out, and I took Montreal steak seasoning, which is heavy on pepper, and I grounded it in my little spice food grinder,
Yeah.
and I used that in the marinade. So,
Okay. So, did you drink any of that bourbon while you were doing this?
no, Jeff wouldn't let me.
Okay.
And Donna was here. She would have
Well-
told Granny.
Oh, well, hopefully you didn't put too much bourbon in it, because Mike's got to drive home later.
Half a cup.
Well, we've got a room for him.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
We
good.
As long as I can
Give him a
get to
room.
the Capitol by 8:30, I'll be good.
You'll be good.
Okay.
And then I did sauteed garden vegetables and the peppers,
Okay.
the cauliflower,
Okay.
the squashes were out of your garden.
Okay.
He has turnips, and I'm trying to figure, you know how they take baby potatoes and boil them and take the skins off and then fry them in batter, how good those are?
But we're not having those?
No, we're not having
Oh,
those. That's
gosh.
the recipe I'm working on now.
You're
I
leading
think
me
I
off
can.
in the wrong
Sorry.
path.
Well, I think I can do it to turnips. What do you think? The baby turnips?
Oh, I think you can, yeah.
I think
But
it'd be
we're not
very
having
different.
that tonight. We're
No.
having squash, fried squash, and,
No, we're having sauteed squash, green peppers, red onions, broccoli, and cauliflower.
okay,
Okay.
and steak, and what
And
else we
steak.
having?
And then I did a layered potato casserole.
Okay,
I have a layered 7-layer salad that I love. And I have
but we're
this.
not doing that.
No. And we have a twice baked potato casserole that I love.
Oh, that sounds good.
So I thought, okay, why couldn't I layer the casserole and
Okay.
use the ingredients in it that I would use in the twice baked potato casserole, but yet have potatoes, not mashed potatoes, and layer it and cook it, and it turned
Okay,
out
so this
it smells
evening,
good,
we're going to be guinea pigs, in other words,
just twice,
just twice, okay.
maybe 3 times.
For the steak sauce and the Potatoes, okay.
Right,
All
well.
right. What are we
okay.
having for dessert?
Oh, a Dutch apple pie, that's your third guinea pig. This is only my 5th time of fixing it.
Okay.
And I'm still playing around with proportions and recipes.
Well, did you use my apples?
I did use your apples. He brought me up 2 packs of apples from Tucker County, and it may not have been Tucker County.
Yeah, it was
I always
Tucker
say
County.
Tucker
Yes.
County.
Right.
And it had combination apples in it, believe it or not. It had Jonathan, Wine Saps, Yorks, Golden Delicious, Red Delicious.
And Rome's. Rome.
Oh, and Roman Beauties. And the Golden Delicious and the Red Delicious, I didn't have enough of any one apple to do it, but so I just
So you
pulled
just
them out
mixed
at
them out.
random.
Okay.
And the Delicious will get real soft and make like applesauce, and the others are good cooking apples and they'll stay firm. So I'm really interested to see how this one will turn out.
Okay, well, let's get
Amazing
started
that you
on our...
know all those different apples.
Oh, I'm an apple person. When we got married, Dan took me away for our honeymoon, and he stopped at this little roadside place and got me a little bag of York Imperial apples. And the farmer who was there said, you can't find these anywhere because they're very rare. And in almost 50 years, I have never found them again.
Okay.
But I remember,
All
do you
right.
remember doing that for me?
No, I don't.
Must
See?
have been like, the Stark brothers come in and got their apples like they did the Golden Delicious from us.
Probably
So the Golden
So
Delicious
you were on your
is
way
from
to
West
where
Virginia.
when you went on your honeymoon?
Well, we were
in
at
North Carolina?
Yeah, we were in North Carolina.
Cherry Point, North
Cherry
Carolina.
Point, North Carolina.
That's where I was stationed after I came back from Vietnam.
Harrison, how's
well-
the apple business coming along?
It's good. I mean,
Becky,
so,
let's stop talking and let's start eating. You're
Well,
starting
I
me
haven't
dead.
visited with Harrison in a long time, and I've never visited with
You
you
should have
guys.
came out here earlier. So let's try to eat our salad here.
All right.
All right.
Are we ready for our entree? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Kels.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah. It's pretty different. Okay.
I might even feel guilty about eating this one for you.
You should.
Oh, my. Well, if you feel that bad, you can pay.
I'll pay, okay.
Not going to pass on that
Yeah,
one.
they'll take credit cards, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, come on, girls.
But if you look at, the infrastructure piece for anything, if you don't have the infrastructure, nothing else can come.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, that affects
Since
our
they built
schools.
Rome, roads to Rome.
Right. Well, I
Okay,
mean,
Becky.
people don't understand just when you look at roads, it's not just the roads, it's the infrastructure for the roads. It's the lines of communication that flow with it, the water lines. As you're building those roads, you can do all kinds of other things.
Yeah, correct. You're right. All right. Let's go.
Okay.
Father, we thank you for this food tonight, for the opportunity to be here. Pray you'll bless this food and nourish our bodies. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen.
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 All right. Well, gosh, somehow I got 2 knives. Okay.
Well, I don't know how you did that. Oh, they brought one on your,
On my plate.
On your-
honestly.
your
I already
plate.
had one.
you can save it for dessert. You may
Okay.
need a steak knife to cut it.
Okay. Okay, we'll try this. And this has got bourbon on it?
Bourbon and a lot of Montreal steak seasoning.
Smells good.
It's very tasty.
Is it really?
It's very good.
Sometimes when I make up my recipes, what can I say?
Well, I think it tastes like steak. What else can I say?
very good.
Let's try this potatoes. Is there bacon in this potato as well?
10 slices.
So there's nothing here dietary.
No, Dan. There's nothing dietary on this.
Okay.
It's got sour cream, butter, a whole stick I might add.
On the potatoes? Oh my.
And then the layers, then I took it and blended it together with my seasonings, and then I mixed the potatoes in, and I'd layer the potatoes, then the green onions, then the bacon, then the last layer of potatoes, green onions, bacon, and then cheese on top.
Green onions, huh? Okay. Well, I think it tastes good. And the
It's very
broccoli?
good.
And broccoli store-bought.
Oh.
This is delicious,
That's
Becky.
delicious.
Well, thank you, Becky.
Very good.
I know when you cook with an alcoholic thing like a bourbon, all of the alcohol actually goes away in the atmosphere.
You know, on our rum raisin ice cream, we can't serve it to anyone under 21 because it's not cooked. It's added to the ice cream after it's been whipped.
I didn't know that.
Well,
Rum raisin rice ice cream.
Now the bread pudding, any age can have it because it's been baked and the alcohol evaporates, leaving the taste.
Right.
Becky, these potatoes are really good.
Well, thank you, Vicki.
I'll gratin type potatoes.
I'm going to cut another piece of steak and I'm going to eat it. And I love it. I'm not real good at this. The steak is very good.
We're gonna have to have Becky come down and cook in the Capitol for a day.
Yes,
Maybe,
we are.
Maybe get the enthusiasm up down there.
I think Governor Justice
Or make
would
them
enjoy
run
this.
away as fast as they can, one or the
No, they
other.
won't. I guarantee you'll draw a crowd if you cook this.
Cook,
meal.
cook, cook down there.
The governor would enjoy this meal.
All right. Well, Becky, the food was really good, but let's have our dessert and let's see what it tastes like.
All right, I do not know how this will turn out.
Okay.
This is about my 4th Dutch apple pie, and
Okay.
I have done all sorts of things to it, so we'll see if this helped or if it hurt.
Okay. Well, I think you're supposed to make the apple pie out of one particular apple. That way you know which apple is the best apple.
I know,
for-
Danny, but you bought me all those apples that were 8 different kinds.
Well, that's the way I picked them out of the bins. You know, they were all different types.
Oh, did they have different bins?
Oh, they had all of them in each, I could have bought a bag of each type, but I didn't do that because,
Oh.
number one, what would we do with all those apples? I know you'd put them in the freezer.
Well,
Let's
yeah,
try this
for
so
apple
that,
cobblers during the
let's see
winter.
what this tastes like. We've been waiting a long time here. We better get this eaten.
It looks delicious.
Now that one must have been
It
the
is
Granny
delicious.
Smith. It's still crisp.
Very
It's
good.
very good. Very good. I like the crisp part. And the apples, of course.
You like the little topping, the strudel topping?
It's very good.
Becky, tell me again how you made the topping.
1 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of sugar, a pinch of salt, and 1/2 cup of melted butter. And you took your flour and mixed the sugar and the salt in it real well, added the butter and kept stirring it and working it with your hands until all the butter was absorbed. And then all you did was just crumble it on the top.
That's
It's very good. I like the crust part. It's real good.
Oh, that's the Ian's pie recipe for the crust.
Okay.
Crunchy
Is that in
topping
your
is favorite.
cookbook?
Becky, the crunchy topping is really good.
Really good.
Well, thank you, Vicki.
Becky has written 4 cookbooks, and of course they sell them here at the inn, and they're different recipes that her mother and my mother and she's developed, and it's a really good book.
You might want to buy a couple.
I imagine.
Now, the first one, it was the kitchen staff and I developed. And then
Okay.
the others, it was family and me and whatever.
Right. But the rolls you ate was my mother-in-law's recipe.
Yeah, it was my mama's
And,
recipe.
How did you like those rolls?
Oh, those were very
delicious.
good.
Those were very good, yes.
I noticed y'all ate them, so.
Well, we
Those have
did.
been pretty good.
Those were delicious too.
Yeah, I mean, there are rolls and there are rolls, and those are very good rolls because they just like, I don't know what the right word is, but they're,
Well, there's several different types of recipes for rolls, you know. And these are, what do you call these yeast rolls as well, or?
Yeah, these are yeast rolls, but they're egg rolls. They're
Okay.
made with a lot of eggs in it as well.
the trick to it is several eggs in it.
And,
One batch takes a dozen eggs.
And the,
You have to have the right flour.
you have to have the right flour as well.
Oh.
And it's, what's the brand on that flour?
Hudson cream.
Hudson Cream.
We use it exclusively because
Did
it's
you hear
such a
that?
high gluten flour that it makes it raise easier. And
Hudson Cream is the.
Hudson cream, okay, okay.
And
Now-
that's a very popular flour that most of the major
Just on the East
restaurants
Coast.
use, like the Greenbrier and those people.
Was that something you buy at Kroger's, or do you have to get that somewhere?
you can buy it at Kroger's. You cannot buy it at Walmart, though.
Becky, do you do a lot of the desserts and rolls here?
We
She
do
used
them all
to.
here.
I mean,
She
do
used to
you
it.
yourself?
She used to
Yes,
do
I
a lot
used to
of
do
it.
them all.
She's kind of semi-retired now.
I told
She's
Rhonda
trying to
is
train me, it's just not going very well. I'm not very trainable.
Rhonda is the new manager, and I come down a couple times a week to bother her, I'm sure. But she's very good-natured about it, and to help her out if she has any problems. And
I'm sure she
her
appreciates
Italian
that.
bread is
She
better
does.
than mine.
Well, Becky, you've done it again. You've made another great meal for us here at the inn and my guest, and we appreciate it. And did you all like the meal today?
Very much so.
Wonderful.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Well,
you
for having us.
Becky, I think I'm going to keep you for a couple more weeks.
You started out 1 week.
You're up
Keep
to
you for
2.
one more
I
week. We're
can
up
keep
to
you a
2
couple
now.
weeks.
I think the apple pie got you 2 weeks, Becky.
Yeah, that's
It may
right.
have, but I don't like it with the different apple types mixed together, because you get one that's real soft, ready to go to applesauce, and then the next one
Well, try
is
to
too hard. Next time, buy me all Jonathan's.
I got all different types and put them in different bags so that you have all the apples you want. Okay. Well, thanks for watching Dining with Dan and Becky at the Glen Ferris Inn, and so long, and thanks for watching.
See ya.
See you next week.
Bye. See